Hello, everyone, and welcome to Book and Story World with author Priya Grewal, Season 3, Episode 4. Massive thank you to anyone who's listened to my podcast before, and thank you to any listeners who come across my podcast in the future. So, for today's episode, I thought I would read aloud my horror fantasy book called The United Universe, Empires of the Gods and Goddesses, and the subtitle on the front is When Envy Seeps In, and that's by myself, Priya Grewal. So along with my other self-published collection, 21 books in total now, they're all available on Amazon in paperback or on Kindle. Okay, so today I'm going to read the United Universe, Empires of the Gods and Goddesses out loud. So let's get started. Right, the United Universe, Empires of the Gods and Goddesses, a tale of monarchy, power and treachery by myself, Priya Grewal. Chapter 1. Princess Amrana lay back on her hammock, watching the beautiful stars in the night sky of her parents' empire. She was in the palace gardens, laying in one of the hammocks that connected from outside her palace window in her bedroom to the outside gardens. She had loved laying in the hammock at night time since she was a little girl. Her parents were gods. Her father was the almighty Galacticus and her mother the beautiful Ara. They had been born along with the rest of the gods and goddesses billions of years ago in something they called the Big Bang. What existed in the air at that point combined together to form a huge explosion, and the first life had been born. Princess Amrana's parents had told her when she was a little girl that all the gods and goddesses were coloured clouds in different colours floating around the cosmos that was, and all had a mind. Slowly together they had made the form they had with a face and a body and began communicating with one another. The male form and female form were created. Some of the gods took the male form and others the female. Together they built a universe. Billions of them had been born. They formed the language that all spoke. They made grand palaces and gardens and invented games to play with one another. Eventually, once they had all been friends for millions of years, one of the gods called Venox invented the idea of sex and marriage. He invented a feeling of pleasure the male and female organs needed for sex and had the idea of having a ceremony that bonded the female and male god together forever. Each pair would live with their partner and enjoy his idea, which he called sex. Venox made up the term husband and wife for it and called the ceremony a wedding. So, all the gods and goddesses chose who they wanted to live with, who had the opposite form to themselves, and were married. After millions of years of enjoying their universe, each couple with their palace island, consisting of the palace as their home shelter, a beach, ocean, and beautiful rainforests, and a few things invented for leisure like baths and swimming pools, someone came up with the idea of doing something more. All the gods and goddesses had had a fantastic time being married and being friends with one another. All the billions of gods and goddesses knew one another and had all become amazingly good friends. They all enjoyed each other's company. One day, one of the gods called Joroth pitched an idea to one of the gods about creating a world of beings that each couple ruled over. When word spread, the other gods and goddesses thought it was such a good idea, they called an entire population universe meeting to make the proposal. Joroth outlined his plans before all the gods and goddesses, his wife Marlita supporting him. He proposed that each married couple create millions and millions of new beings. They would pass some of their powers on to the beings they made. He proposed that each pair of gods should invent millions of planets for the beings they made together. They would design many things for the beings to do. All the gods would enjoy ruling their world so that they made together with their partner, and they would always invent for their populations with one another, holding what they called council meetings to share new ideas. So, the united universe of the empires of the gods and goddesses were born. They called the beings they made immortals. Each immortal was made a palace each. Each pair of gods made their immortals for their worlds, housed them, and cared for them all. They told the immortals about marriage for the future. The gods and goddesses called themselves Emperor King and Empress Queen, the rulers and creators of each of their empires. They invented games for the population and what they called sports, and invented ongoing music videos, a moving story which they called a movie, incredible foods and drinks, and many more things. All the immortals in each empire had a fantastic time. Each couple of gods and goddesses had a brilliant time inventing and throwing grand balls and parties with their own empire of immortals, and also enjoyed still meeting up with one another. They had an amazingly good time with incredible wardrobes and clothing made for all. The immortals loved their existence. They loved the magical powers like flying, teleporting, and conjuring that their gods and goddesses had given them. They loved their rich palaces and garments and existence of luxury and non-stop fun and pleasure. The immortals, after settling in for 100 years or more, began to get married. Millions of years later, the gods and goddesses had invented the idea of each married couple having what they called a baby. A new life born from sex which would grow in their mother's belly on the inside for 9 months. The gods and goddesses and all the immortals loved the invention of a baby which grows into what they called a child and into adulthood. The children stopped aging at 27. The gods and goddesses had had 19 children each by the time Princess Amrana was born. She was her parents' 20th child. They had 4 more children after Princess Amrana, so had 24 children in total. Currently, all had grown to 27 and stopped aging. Princess Amrana had a wonderful time with her grown-up brothers and sisters until she stopped aging to 27 and then was an adult like the rest of them. The gods and goddesses had each child separately and only had another one once one child was born to full adulthood and stopped aging. Princess Amrana was currently 5,200 years old. This was still considered as being in her early youth. Princess Amrana loved her parents, her siblings, and her friends, whether they were other princes and princesses, children of the gods, or the immortals' children. All the born, whether born from gods or mortals, were called angels. Her species was called a goddess angel. The males a god angel. The children of immortals made by the gods were called immortal angels. Princess Amrana loved her childhood and the incredible world made by her parents. She loved going into the sky to see the whole cosmos, which went on and on, with all the planets each pair of married gods and goddesses had made together and ruled over their own ones separate to the rest of the gods and goddesses ruling over their own. Their business together was creating and inventing. Princess Amrana also loved flying. She loved the parties and all the festivals her parents organized. It was the best existence one could ever have. Princess Amrana closed her eyes and lay smiling on the hammock, appreciating every element of existence. Chapter 2. Princess Amrana was laying on her bed talking to her betrothed. The gods all fixed their children up with their perfect match, magically found. The perfect match for each prince and princess born based on their character. Their parents liked finding them who each of their children would have the best time living with. Their word for wife or husband was also eternity partner. The immortals did the same and found their children their perfect match in the entire grand universe. A lot of the time, the immortals' children's perfect match was in the same local area, which they called towns. Sometimes their perfect match may be in another god and goddess's empire. On these occasions, one of the pair would agree to move to the other one's world, and a new palace would be built for each couple. The immortal children, like the gods' children, lived with their parents until they married their eternity partner. Before children were invented, the made immortals also found their perfect match in the entire universe. Weddings and marriage had always been an exciting prospect and occasion. Due to the world being so magnificent with all the gods' inventions and having magical powers, the recommended marriage age for a grown-up child to marry was 10,000 years old. The princes and princesses had all been introduced to their chosen as children at around 4 years old. From that point onwards, they knew that the chosen one for themselves was their perfect eternity partner. Princess Amrana loved her betrothed and her friends, whether they were a princess or prince or a mortal child. She loved all the fantastic parties she went to with the rest of the children in the entire universe. There were many children to play with and have a good time with, and she enjoyed the parties with entire families and their populations to this day. Her betrothed had been her best friend since she was 4 years old, both excited for their future. The gods' recommended age for the children to start having sex with their betrothed was 17. All the children, godchild or immortal child, were allowed to have sex from 17, the gods inventing a lovely room for each pair to make love to one another in until they were married. Princess Amrana found sex to be a wonderful invention in the already incredible universe. The invention of sex made it even greater. So did having a betrothed. Sex enhanced everyone's feelings for their chosen partner since it was first invented. It felt like being truly a part of one another, Princess Amrana had found. Princess Amrana's betrothed was laying down next to her, relaxing on her bed. His name was Prince Rivero. His beautiful lilac eyes gazed into her own startling green ones. They were a deep green more beautiful than all the diamonds in the universe. Everyone was extremely beautiful in the universe. The gods and goddesses had made themselves magnificent faces. They all made their mortals sensationally beautiful too, male and female. Of course, that meant that all babies born, whether god or mortal, were also sensationally beautiful. Everyone was really happy with their betrothed. Prince Rivero fiddled with Princess Amrana's hair, letting the silky strands fall in between his fingers. "Are you looking forward to another grand ball held by your parents next week?" Prince Rivero asked Princess Amrana. "Of course," Princess Amrana replied. "I love all of their balls." "Don't you ever get tired of them?" Prince Rivero asked. "Isn't it just the same old thing?" "What, everyone having a fantastic time dancing, playing games, enjoying the music and food and drink?" Princess Amrana asked, slightly annoyed. "Why would I ever get tired of that?" "Just saying," Prince Rivero said, putting his hands behind his head as he lay down. "Well, don't go then," Princess Amrana snapped, irritated, getting up to leave the bed. Prince Rivero grabbed her hand and dragged her back down. He went on top of her. "I'm just joking," he said softly. "I just like winding you up," he said, and kissed her gently. "Okay," Princess Amrana said, smiling. "Don't do it again." "I won't," Prince Rivero responded, and began kissing her softly again. Chapter 3. Princess Amrana was sitting at the palace dining table with her mother and father, Emperor Galacticus and Empress Ara. Of course, to Amrana they were mum and dad. All of her brothers and sisters were sitting at the table with their husbands and wives also dining. She hadn't invited Rivero because he was irritating her slightly at the moment. He was always moaning or contradicting everything she said. She put it down to him being spoiled by his parents. She still loved him but needed a little bit of space to enjoy dinner with her family. Her father Galacticus tapped the side of his glass with a spoon to get everyone's attention. "To all my wonderful sons and daughters," he began, "and of course my wonderful daughter and son-in-laws. It is a pleasure to have you all here having a meal with your mother Ara and myself and youngest sibling still to be married." Amrana smiled. "Even though you all have your own palaces now, it is important to spend time together as a family, and that means having regular meals with your mother and father and siblings. Family means having a wonderful time together and meeting up regularly. So, thank you all for coming here tonight. Let's raise a toast to family," Galacticus instructed them all. Everyone raised their glasses and said, "To family." Amrana's mother, Ara, said, "Hear, hear," extremely jollily. "And," Galacticus continued, "to all my grandchildren also in attendance." Amrana sighed. She found her nieces and nephews who were older than her really annoying. They were so in love with themselves and acted like she was a baby when she was their aunt, even if she was younger than themselves. 7 of her sisters and brothers, 3 females and 4 males, had grown-up children who had stopped aging at 27 and were currently 10,000 years old. They had recently all got married to their betrothed who were also sitting at the table. The gods and goddesses carried on having children whenever they wanted, despite having grandchildren. Her siblings who had grown-up children couldn't wait to have a baby, so had begun starting a family themselves. The siblings who were younger than her were around 1,000 to 3,000 years old. Her favourite sibling was Karina. She was married to a prince called Karnak. He was really friendly and funny and loved all the TV shows both parents made. He loved fantasy movies in particular, made by each and every pair of emperor and empress gods. He loved his own parents' films most of all, followed by Amrana's own parents. Amrana secretly thought that some of the gods' movies weren't as great as her own parents. Her own parents put a lot of effort into everything they made, from perfume scents, food and drink, new games, cartoons, TV shows, films and music, and so much more. Nobody could contest that everything her parents made was 10 out of 10. Amrana liked her sibling Karina best of all because she was really lovely and sweet and normal. Her other siblings and their grown-up children were extremely conceited and full of themselves. In the last few years, she had begun to dislike many of them, as they always put her down and acted like she was stupid. "You're stupid," she muttered to herself sometimes. Despite their ways, she still loved having a big family and having get-togethers and adored her parents. Galacticus continued. Although you are older than some of your aunts and uncles, I just wanted to say that I am extremely proud of the men and women you have become. You are always good representatives of myself and your grandmother Ara, and we are proud that you are our grandchildren. And to my youngest children, not yet wed, I am extremely proud of all of you too. The grandchildren started applauding their shout-out, loving the attention. Amrana wanted to laugh at the act the grandchildren put on in front of her parents. They were vile without any grandparents around. They sucked up to all of the adults, acting as sweet as pie. Amrana drank the gorgeous drink in her glass. Amrana, her older brother Bizarra, said, "Have you learned to play the piano yet?" Her sister Eleanor began to laugh. They loved the fact that they were older than her. Both of them had their annoying children and were still so immature. "I learned to play the piano ages ago," Amrana retorted. "Not as good as me yet," Prince Bizarra chortled. "Or me," her brother Jazav piped in. "Whatever," she said jokingly. "You're all rubbish at it." "Well, let's have a competition when you're up to my level of brilliance," Bizarra said competitively. "Fine," Amrana exclaimed. "Ready whenever you are." Bizarra began to laugh. Amrana rolled her eyes at her immature older siblings. Chapter 4. Amrana had gone to visit her immortal friend called Latanya, whose immortal parents had been made by her mother and father, Emperor King Galacticus and Empress Queen Ara. Amrana was lounging on the sunbed next to Latanya's indoor pool in the palace Latanya lived in with her parents and non-married siblings. The gods and goddesses had their children at the same time as one another, so there was always the same generation of princes and princesses to grow up and enjoy themselves together. The immortals did the same thing. Every pair of gods and goddesses and married immortal parents had 24 grown-up and finished-aging children. Each had 12 sons and 12 daughters. It made the universe extremely exciting and fun. The princes and princesses were all introduced as children and had a great time together. The princes and princesses were also friends with the immortals made by their parents' children. Being born in the same year as a whole generation of children made it the most exciting, fun universe ever. On top of that, family time was also fantastic. Amrana was enjoying a tropical drink invented by her parents. She felt extremely happily comfortable lounging on a sunbed next to Latanya, next to the indoor swimming pool. The room was fantastically decorated with lovely, luxurious-looking plants. Every room in the palace had been designed and made by her parents, as had every palace in their grand universe of billions and billions of planets full of the made inhabitants. "So, how's Corin?" Amrana asked Latanya. "He's okay," responded Latanya. Her yellow hair was tied back in a hairbun, and her sparkly yellowish eyes were currently covered with her indoor shades she liked wearing. "Just so self-obsessed," she said, putting her hands behind her head. "He's like a little child wanting to win every game he plays and taking sports way too seriously. I told him that sports is for fun, not to take seriously," Latanya told Amrana. "He acts like winning a game is the most important thing in all the empire universes of gods and goddesses," Latanya stated. Latanya began to laugh, and so did Amrana. "What about Rivero? How's he doing?" Latanya asked her. Amrana sipped on her drink through a straw. The glass of drink had a little umbrella in it. "Yeah," she said somewhat flatly. "He's okay. A little irritating at the moment, truth be told. Always wanting to put a dampener on things." Latanya conjured a bottle of pink nail polish full of glitter before her. Amrana watched the golden sparkle coming out of her finger and form the nail polish bottle. Amrana glanced at her own nails, wondering if she should get a manicure. It was an extremely luxurious experience going to the spas invented by her parents and getting manicures and pedicures and massages. Everyone also had an indoor spa, sauna, massage parlor, and hairdressing and manicure and pedicure rooms in their grand homes. Amrana laid back on her sunbed smiling, thinking about how much she loved magic. Latanya began to paint her toenails. "They're just getting so conceited," Latanya stated as she painted her toenails. "I think they're just getting more and more spoiled the older they get by their parents. They love being princes and being on stage in front of a big crowd full of immortals their parents made, and their children," Latanya added. "They love it more and more the older they get, thinking they're a big deal the older they get. Now they're men, as they like to say," Latanya said. "Oh, well," she laughed. "They're good for having sex with. So I guess we can learn to deal with their conceited moaning ways. She laughed some more. Amrana grinned. Can't live with them, can't live without them. She laughed, thinking about the pleasures experienced when making love. Latania's phone buzzed. She picked up her flip phone. A hologram of Corin's face appeared when she opened it. Hi, Corin, Latania said. That's Prince Corin to you, Corin responded. Huh? Latania replied. Just kidding, Prince Corin said, smiling a toothy grin. What are you up to? Corin asked. Just hanging with Amrana, Latania said. She moved her phone to face Amrana, and Amrana waved at Corin. Oh, hey, Amrana, Corin said, glancing at her briefly. Latania turned the phone to face herself again. I lost my tennis match, Corin said gloomily. Oh, for the love of all the gods and goddesses, does it matter? It's just a game, Latania snapped slightly. Well, if I can't moan to you about it, who am I meant to moan to? Corin asked, sounding glum. Whatever, Latania replied. Are we still meeting up later? Yeah, Corin said. Meet me in my garden at 10 p.m.? Okay, see you then, Latania said and hung up. Corin's hologram disappeared when Latania snapped her phone shut. See, Latania said to Amrana. Complete moron. Amrana laughed again and conjured up some shades to wear and laid her head back, relaxing on the sunbed. Chapter 5. Princess Amrana was in her grand bedroom getting ready for her parents' grand ball that night. She was extremely excited. Her parents had created an occasion for children where they all dressed up as their favourite book or movie character. The occasion had spread to the other universes, and the other emperors and empresses had begun holding balls for it too. It was a lot of fun. It didn't matter how old Princess Amrana got, she loved World Character Day. Her parents had made up having parties and all sorts of fun for children on the occasion when they were children. The adults too had fun dressing up, and it had become a universe-loved occasion. Princess Amrana was dressing up as a fairy who granted wishes in one of her favourite childhood books by her parents. The book was called Wishes by a Fairy. Princess Amrana had chosen a big pink dress to wear, the same as the fairy in her favourite book. She was magically messing around with an updo in the mirror. She thought she'd use a magical wand for a laugh like the character in the book instead of her finger, as she messed around with her hairstyles. She settled on an updo which was high up and loose-looking, with strands of hair falling around her face. Hello, said a voice. It was Karina. Can I come in? Of course, Amrana said happily. She watched as her favourite sibling materialised into the room. Just popping in to see what you're wearing, Karina said. Karina was wearing a black lacy jumpsuit outfit, the same as another character from her parents' stories called Cassilia. The story was about a magical being who was obsessed with finding a magical object. It was her sister's favourite childhood book character. Karina looked particularly stunning with the dark eye makeup she had put on to go with the outfit. You look great, Amrana marvelled. And so do you, little sister, Karina exclaimed, putting her hands on Amrana's shoulder. Thanks, Amrana said, happily looking at her reflection. She loved dressing up. The ball was an entire empire ball held by her parents. Her parents magicked up a massive never-ending hall that could fit in every inhabitant in the entire universe that they had made, and their grown-up children too, all in costumes. It was so exciting. What's Travero wearing? Karina asked happily. Oh, who knows? He's probably just going to go as his new dreary self, Princess Amrana said jokingly. Karina laughed. Who is Kanak going as? Asked Amrana. Oh, his favourite pirate from one of his childhood books written by his parents, Karina said. He's been extremely excited for the ball this year. He said he's going to pop into ours and his own parents, Karina told Amrana. He's been more excited than a 7-year-old, Karina added. Ooh, I can't wait, Amrina squealed in excitement. Her insides were filling with excited anticipation. Counting down the hours, Amrana added. I know, Karina exclaimed. Right, Karina said, jumping off Amrana's bed. I'm going to pop back to my palace to see how Kanak is getting on with his pirate outfit. See you at the ball, Karina said, teleporting out of the room. See you, Amrana replied. Amrana heard music start playing downstairs. She jumped up excitedly in her pink dress, wand in hand, and went downstairs to wait for the fun to begin. Chapter 6. Princess Amrana sipped one of her parents' incredible drinks called Zap. She sipped it happily through a straw, enjoying the music and walking around saying hello to their guests. Her mother and father, Ara and Galacticus, were talking to their friends, some of the immortal beings they had made. They considered everyone that they had made as a friend and kin. They had made a special bond with everyone they had made. Those they had made had the bond of being made by their makers and adored them. Ara and Galacticus considered the children of the immortals they made as their kin too. To everyone who lived in their empire, they were the source of their creation. This was a special bond that Amrana's parents had explained to her growing up. She showed respect to all her parents' immortal being friends. Amrana scanned the crowd for her younger brothers and sisters. She couldn't seem to find any of them, 2 males and 2 females. They were all betrothed to their soulmate. Their names were Diavos, Narum, Ileka, and Jailer. Amrana found them all annoying after the first few hundred years of existence. They had also become conceited and thought they were best at every sport or game the gods and goddesses had ever invented. It drove her crazy. They seeped the fun out of everything, even though she had adored every moment of her existence. Everything was meant to be fun, not competitive. Amrana scanned the crowd for Rivero. She couldn't seem to see him either. She waved at Karina, seeing her from a distance standing next to their parents. She smiled and waved. Amrana found Latanya standing next to the table full of wonderful treats. "Hello," Amrana greeted Latanya. "You look wonderful," Amrana exclaimed. Latanya was wearing a beautiful golden dress, as character from a film Amrana's parents had made. She had gold sparkly eyeshadow on and gold lipstick. "So do you," Latanya exclaimed back. "Where's Corin?" asked Amrana. "He said he's going to be at his parents' ball until 12 p.m. and then we'll pop in here," she said. "Shall we dance?" Latanya asked Amrana. "Yeah," Amrana responded happily. Both girls rose into the air happily. A lot of the time spent dancing was in the air in the empires of the gods and goddesses. Amrana cheered at the wonderful music, drinking her drink in the air. She set off some lights magically, the wonderful colours leaving her and sailing into the air around her. Latanya smiled happily, sailing across the air. Amrana smiled at Latanya. Suddenly, Amrana felt something grab her and pull her down past the floor of the ballroom. She was plunged into darkness and was being dragged down further and further, the darkness never ending. Next, she saw orange liquid. Amrana screamed as a sensation she had never felt before spread across her body. Amrana didn't know what the word was for this feeling and couldn't stop screaming due to it. "It's called pain," she heard an awful loud whispery voice say. "And it's going to last forever," she heard the raspy voice say as the pain became more and more unbearable. "You will never leave the house of pain," the voice continued. "Welcome and get settled in," the voice continued. Amrana screamed and screamed, the pain so searingly terrible she couldn't begin to fathom what was going on, the orange liquid engulfing her. Chapter 7. Latanya smiled at Princess Amrana, enjoying dancing in the air. Suddenly, Latanya felt a searing pain start in her feet. She looked down to see an orange substance starting to eat at her, getting higher and higher. She glanced up and saw Amrana disappear, getting dragged away through the floor by an invisible entity. The unpleasant feeling grew stronger and stronger, and Latanya screamed at the horrible feeling as the orange substance consumed her body. Latanya screamed and screamed until she was no more. The palace room had gone from being full of people happy and laughing to complete silence. The palace room was empty. The party-goers either disappeared in the orange substance or were dragged through the floor like Princess Amrana. A deafening silence filled the air. Chapter 8. Princess Amrana writhed in the unbearable pain in the orange sea. The substance was so hot she screamed and screamed. She could not bear to take in the words she had heard. "You will never leave the house of pain." Princess Amrana was already wishing she had never been born. Suddenly, a horrific huge claw came looking around in the orange substance, and she felt it take hold of her and dig its claws into her body. Princess Amrana screamed again, the orange substance choking her as the pain seared into her body. She was lifted out of the orange sea and came face to face with the most terrifying face imaginable. The creature had long teeth, ruined rotting flesh, and red eyes. Princess Amrana screamed in fear. The creature was huge. Princess Amrana was tiny in its claw. The creature's head touched the ceiling. "Well, well, well," it said in a raspy voice. "My name is Demonica, and you and I are going to have a lot of fun," the creature said, digging its claw deeper and deeper into Princess Amrana. She screamed in fear and pain. "If you know what I mean," it added. Princess Amrana saw a contraption full of spikes and what looked like jagged stalagmites. The creature lowered her down, placing her in the middle of the contraption. No, Princess Amrana cried out. The creature began lowering his face towards her. All of a sudden, Princess Amrana felt another rush. She blinked. She was now in a room with many people materializing in. She looked around and saw her mother and father's concerned and confused-looking faces. Amrana scrambled up, rushing to her parents. "Mum! Dad!" she managed to cry out. Her parents took her into their arms, as confused and scared-looking as she was. Chapter 9. Amrana stayed in her mother and father's arms for a moment. Then they spotted Princess Karina laying on the floor. She was covered in a red, horrible-looking substance and looked too dazed to speak. Amrana and her mother and father rushed over to Karina. Galacticus put his hand in Karina's. "Karina," Ara said gently. "Mum," she whispered. She glanced down at herself. "What is this red stuff?" she asked. Ara placed her hand on the red liquid all over Karina's body. "It's just a red liquid," Ara responded. "There will be blood. There will be blood," Karina whispered out loud. That's what the creature kept saying. Ara squeezed Karina into a tight hug. Amrana glanced down at herself and saw some of the red liquid on herself too. "What happened? What were those things?" Amrana cried out, asking her mother and father. "I'm not sure," Galacticus responded. "The important thing is we're all out of there now. We're safe." Galacticus saw the gods Jorith and Venix approaching. "I'll be back in a moment," Galacticus said to his family. "I'll just find out what is going on." Galacticus got up. He was shaking a little. Amrana watched as he spoke to Jorith and Venox. The Emperor King god called Joshua also joined the circle discussion. He was one of her favorite gods along with Karina's. He was always friendly and made good music and films too, which they all enjoyed. He was a very good friend of her mother and father's. The large palace room was full of shocked and petrified-looking gods and goddesses and their children and some grandchildren. Jorith finally spoke amidst the confused conversation. "We have been betrayed," he said out loud. "The abductions were organized by the god Satanus, the god Luciferian, and the goddess Davila. They made the creatures who took us. The horrible feeling that we all experienced was their invention called pain. They called it torture. The gods and goddesses with them were going to go into disguise as creatures too to inflict this invention pain onto us forever. The torture executed by themselves and their creatures they made. They lived in a secret world waiting to abduct us for the last 18 years for imprisonment in this realm of pain and torture built by the three gods. They called the prison Helios, the House of Pain and Torture. They have also ended the existence of many immortals and immortal angels. From what we can see, their motivation is jealousy of the gods who are popular with their empires and beyond, for their inventions and films and music, and for their characters. Satanus, Luciferian, and Davila came up with this plan for revenge, so it seems, due to their jealousy. They found out that many made immortals, immortal angels, and other gods and goddesses, along with prince and princess, god or goddess angels, were jealous too. They thought that if they organized the end of the existence of all the immortals and immortal angels we're popular with, to end our world of being the popular gods and goddesses, and offered all the jealous, regardless of species, the imprisonment torture opportunity to torture us in creature disguises too, that it would make them the most popular of all, for their characters and their inventions. The jealous gods and goddesses, immortals, immortal angels, and god and goddess angels would worship them for their idea and would love inflicting the pain and terrifying disguises on us all forever. They didn't end our existence because the magic didn't work on ourselves or sons and daughters, so they thought up torture instead. The room was completely silent, a shocked atmosphere in the air. "We are completely safe. I, Venox, and Joshua have put up protection everywhere so they cannot get back in under any circumstances. We will bring the immortals and immortal angels back. They called their wicked curse death. We are completely safe in here. We got out because me and Marlita had a secret invisible amulet around our necks. When we began making our empire, we built a backup supply of magic into an amulet. This was in case anyone ever tried to steal the empire away from us or drain us of our magic. The amulet is considered via magic to regenerate us with power if our powers are ever drained from us. We were in there for a minute in Helios, confused, and our powers reactivated as our powers were bound in the prison. We made it so no magic could ever pick up the existence of our amulets. So, if they did look into the future to see if the plan was a success, it would be so that the amulets were never detected in it," Jorith explained. Marlita had appeared by his side and clutched his hand. Jorith squeezed her hand comfortingly. As soon as our power was reactivated through the amulet, we got out and teleported into our palace. That's where you all are now. We cast magic so that everyone who had been abducted would be rescued and transported here, Jorah continued. There were grateful and relieved mutters across the room, families sitting on the floor, arms around one another. We will shortly resurrect all the immortals into one big room together. I will tell them everything I have told you. I will explain that their existence was ended and they have been brought back from the dead, as they named it. Jorah swallowed uncomfortably. We investigated what had happened and who was behind it as soon as we rescued you all. Jorah glanced at Venox to continue. Venox swallowed, looking haunted. I'm afraid there are some more shocks on the way, Venox said grievously. We have not just been betrayed by our friends or immortals we made or their children. Many of us have been betrayed by our own family members. That means they were a part of our abduction, imprisonment, and torture for eternity, and were going to participate in the torture of their own family members forever. The three and the jealous gods and goddesses, along with their maid torturers they called alien demon monster torturers, who were made and housed in a secret dimension and waiting for this day, abducted us all and our good sons and daughters. The jealous prince and princesses and immortals and immortal angels killed all the good immortal and immortal angels, whilst the gods and goddesses and their demons did the abductions of us good gods and goddesses and our good sons and daughters. My own wife is one of them. So, I advise all to prepare themselves. Your own husband, wife, sons, daughters, grandchildren, betrothed, or brothers and sisters may be one of them. Shocked silence filled the air. Amrana glanced at Karina and her mother and father in shocked silence. Chapter 10. Princess Amrana was by Latania's side when the good gods and goddesses brought all the immortals and immortal angels back from the dead. They were all resurrected in a massive hall. Amrana used magic to make sure she was by Latania's side when she came back. When the immortals were resurrected, they were all laying down and got up, looking around in confusion. Amrana, Latania said, eyes wide in shock, picking herself up from the floor into a sitting position. Amrana put her hand in Latania's, still in disbelief. What happened? Latania asked. I saw orange and felt this unbelievably horrible sensation in my body. And then, nothing. Amrana put her arm around Latania's shoulders. The gods and goddesses will explain, Amrana told her. Joroth Venox, with King Joshua and her parents, began speaking and told the resurrected immortals and immortal angels what had happened. They were told their existence had been ended by gods, immortals, immortal angels, and some children of the gods and goddesses. Joroth showed them a hologram of what had happened to the good gods and goddesses and their good children. He showed them Helios and the alien monster demon torturers, and they all gasped. Venox again warned them all that there were traitors in some of their own families, and even husband and wives and betrothed. They were also told to prepare themselves for the shock of finding out who the traitors were. When the gods and goddesses were done explaining what had happened to the immortals and immortal angels and assured them all they were safe, Latania laid her head onto Amrana's shoulder in disbelief. It cannot be, Latania murmured in disbelief. Amrana squeezed Latania as comfortingly as she could. Chapter 11. Amrana was in her family's palace living room, sitting on a sofa with Karina and her mother and father. The rest of their siblings, nieces and nephews were nowhere to be found. Amrana took this as a bad omen. She held her sister Karina's hand, who was still in shock from the abduction and torture she had experienced. Ara and Galacticus had worried expressions on their faces as they appeared in the living room. They hugged both their children and kissed them on their foreheads and took a seat. Ara swallowed. Amrana prepared to hear the worst. It's as we feared, Ara said to them seriously. We can't find any of your brothers or sisters or nieces and nephews because they were all involved in it. So were their spouses and betrothed. Some of their spouses' family members are innocent and were abducted like us. A few of them, Ara said seriously. Amrana cried out. Karina put her other hand on top of Amrana's. All of them, Amrana cried. She thought how vile they'd become over the last 18 years. She thought back to the family meal where her brother Bazara, Eleanor, and Jazeph had annoyed her with their competitiveness. That's why they all became so vile, Amrana exclaimed. I hated our nieces and nephews. I thought our siblings were also conceited too. I know, Karina added in. Amrana thought of her younger siblings. And Diavos, Narum, Jayla, and Dileka, them too? Amrana asked. Yes, her father Galacticus responded. All 22 of them, he added. They were jealous of how popular you were with your empire and beyond? The entire time? Amrona asked, shock consuming her. And yourselves, Galacticus added. Satanus looked at his popularity figures in comparison to those he was becoming jealous of. Him, Luciferian, and Davila checked it together once he informed them of his statistics. They then planned everything, all of it. Satanus made up pain and torture. Luciferian invented death. Davila she thought up torturing us with their monster alien demons and pretending that we had all been abducted by new gods. Us thinking all the gods and goddesses and their children were in there in Helios, Galactus explained. Satanus knew that there were jealous immortals and immortal angels who were jealous of their makers, and their popularity and fame through great things we all made, mainly films and books, creating envy. They persuaded the gods and goddesses by showing them the popularity statistics. It angered them, and they said yes to the entire plan and luring the immortals and the immortal angels into it. Some of them lay with the immortals first. The three said that asking them outright after talking to the immortals would be too much of a big step for the immortals, even if they wanted it. They would be scared. So for some of the immortals and immortal angels, gods and goddesses seducing them and laying with them and declaring their love for them worked. It worked because they had already done wrong, going against their vows and laying with someone other than their betrothed or spouse. The next step was yes to the plan. The immortals and immortal angels had no idea that they were worshipping the organizer gods, and the three most of all. Luciferian, Satanus, and Davila had secretly planned to make the gods and goddesses and some of the princes and princesses worship them too. They loved it all secrets hidden by magic. The immortals and immortal angels would abandon the gods and goddesses if they had known they were being duped into worshipping them instead. The gods and goddesses would want to destroy the three over tricking them into worshipping themselves. So, when it comes to yourselves and the other good princes and princesses, the three with the princes and princesses, other gods helping them, so they say yes, showed the jealous ones on the inside who the most popular princes and princesses were. Some of the gods and goddesses envied the likes of you two too, because your popularity figure were higher than theirs, Galactus exclaimed. Other tactics used on the immortals and immortal angels to seduce them by the gods and goddesses was something they called pranks. They'd persuade the immortals into taking something and then using magic on the person they stole from, by them forgetting about it the second after noticing it was gone, Galacticus told them. Everyone was silent for a moment. And Rivero, Amrana asked, still holding hands with Karina. Kanak? They're nowhere to be found either. I'm sorry, their mother told Amrana and Karina. They've betrayed you too. Amrana put her hand to her mouth in shock again. How? How can this be? Amrana thought to herself. How? Amrana started. How could they do that to us? I know, my love, Ara said compassionately. Ara and Galacticus put their arms around both of their daughters, drawing them close into a family hug. How could they want to inflict torture and pain onto us forever? Karina cried. Lying next to them, talking to them every day, kissing all the time. After all these thousands of years together, what did we ever do to them? This atrocity over jealousy. I vow to you both, Ara said to her daughters, we will never stop hunting them. We will bring them to justice and dump all of them into Helios for thousands of years, and then we will end them for good. All of them, Ara promised her daughters. I will destroy every vile son and daughter, grandson and granddaughter, and daughter and son-in-law, Galacticus pledged. I will destroy Kanak and Rivero. I will twist them until they scream instead. They'll be the ones who wish they were never born. They'll pay, they'll suffer in Helios until we say enough, and then we will rip every single one of them to pieces, Galacticus pledged. We will end them. Whether they're a god, a goddess, a monster, an immortal, or a mortal angel, they'll rue the day they ever plotted against any of us. This, I promise, Galacticus roared angrily. Princess Amrana and Princess Karina laid their heads on their parents, soaking in their words. Chapter 12. Days later, and Amrana and the inhabitants in all the god and goddess empires were still reeling from the shock of it all. Latanya had found out that she had been what was being called killed or murdered, words created by the evil gods by her betrothed Prince Koran. He had personally killed her himself. Most of them had turned invisible whilst doing the murders. The good had realized that the signs of the traitors being petty or competitive or negative was a result of their acting, waiting to kill all immortal beings and their children, and to torture the good gods and goddesses and the good princes and princesses forever. The monsters that the evil gods had made were awful. The three made the monsters who, in the situation if made earlier, would revel in torturing the gods and goddesses and princes and princesses who were popular with the people, made by the gods and goddesses in their own empires. Satanis, Luciferian, and Davila had called the entire organization the occult Illuminasis. They called their trio the Secret Trimurti, where the angry, jealous gods and goddesses didn't know they were being duped into worshipping the three too, themselves the most popular of all. They had made the name witches and wizard warlocks for the future murderers at that point to be initiated with a new species name. Witch was the term for the women, and wizard warlock a term for the males. Each immortal and immortal angel had an initiation ceremony. Satanis, Luciferian, and Davila performed the rites themselves, all already in the Illuminasis, committed to genocide and torture and turning into monsters themselves to torture gods and goddesses, princes and princesses, would be in attendance for the newest member seduced by one of the gods and goddesses into joining. They all wore black ceremonial robes for each immortal member's initiation. The red substance that had scared all who were abducted for around 10 minutes of torture before being rescued was named blood. It was Satanis' invention. It was designed for all the abducted to feel like a weaker species and to be confused. Each initiated member drank a chalice full of it when initiated. They were rebranded with an invisible tattoo to represent witch or wizard. They called themselves the dark side. The term evil was born. It was made up by Luciferian, adapted from Davila's name. When each member was initiated in the secret halls of the three, they would have a club rave in their secret halls of the palaces of the three. Satanis, Luciferian, and Davila made new dark music to dance to, and the members used to bathe in the blood that started pouring from the ceiling, celebrating the demise of the gods and goddesses, princes and princesses they were jealous of in their own empire and beyond. They couldn't wait to become the creature invented for each one of them to morph into by the three. The three came up with the terms they did to become an organization, which meant the immortals and immortal angels would feel more secure with the change in labels and enjoy themselves. They had no idea that the gods and goddesses, angered by the popularity statistics shown to them, were reveling in the worship of the immortals and immortal angels. The immortals didn't realize they were recruiting gods and goddesses' names and bowing to them. They all rolled in it, waiting to turn into their creature given to morph into, waiting to inflict never-ending fear and pain on the gods and goddesses they were jealous of. The evil princes and princesses did not realize they were worshipping the three or the recruiter gods and goddesses themselves. Some of the gods and goddesses were waiting to torture their own god or goddess, husband or wife, and children who were more popular than themselves. They were less popular because they were vain and horrible and in love with themselves and barely paid any attention to the immortals they had made or their sons and daughters. Their films and books were rushed, and they borrowed the good gods and goddesses' films and TV shows and books for millennia, putting the ones who had made it name at the beginning and then putting their own name at the end. This was how the popularity grew of the popular gods and goddesses beyond their own realms. The recruiting gods and goddesses turning the jealous immortals and immortal angels into murderers, and murderers of their own family and friends, and future torturers had everything they wanted in the glory. The desperation of the immortals to end the popularity of the gods and goddesses and god and goddess angels was the reason for the worship. The elated gods and goddesses who turned evil didn't realize they were celebrating Satanis, Luciferian, and Davila for their plan of genocide, imprisonment, and never-ending torture. The monsters who were housed into palaces by the three and showered with riches to be bribed into being the torturers were presented to the newly initiated at their ceremony. They partied with the immortals and immortal angels waiting to kill and torture. A male and female of each demon the three had designed and made to be terrifying was made, so that they could mate and have a good time and have demon children in the future. As for Amrana herself, she was trying to come to terms with Rivero killing everyone in the entire universe and inflicting fear and pain and torture to all the good for all of eternity, along with her siblings. She hated them all. She hated Kanak. Karina had moved back in with her family. She wanted revenge. They all did. As Amrana now knew what Rivero's intentions were to her, along with the rest of them, never-ending torture, fear, and pain, she wanted to inflict that on all of them, as did the rest of the good. Let that be the evil one's destiny instead. Amrana, Karina, and the entire universe thanked Joroth and Marlita every second of the day for their backup power supply and their amulets. Otherwise, they would all still be in Helios, all the immortals and immortal angels still dead. Amrana sat back and tried to relax on the living room sofa. Karina was watching the television, also trying to relax and move on. Their parents, along with the rest of the good gods and goddesses, were talking and trying to work on something to deliver all the fled evil gods and goddesses, princes and princesses, immortals and immortal angels, and monster, alien, demon torturers to themselves too, to be stripped of their magic and thrown into Helios for the next 10,000 years. After that, they wanted to execute them all. They had found a way to kill a god and goddess. They had worked out that they could turn them into stone and then shatter them so they were dead and gone. The immortals, immortal angels, and monster, alien, demon torturers would die by the same weapon that was used to end the existence of the immortals and immortal angels. They would be killed by the lethal orange killing magic. Princess Amrana and Princess Karina, along with the rest of the good princes and princesses and good immortals and immortal angels, waited, whilst the gods and goddesses worked out how to deliver all from evil, quite literally. Chapter 13. The day had arrived for deliverance to begin. The good gods and goddesses had come up with a plan. The fled evil ones were hiding in many different hideouts. There were a million pockets in the universe impenetrable, with the evil ones hiding and living in them. The gods and goddesses didn't have enough power amongst themselves to shatter their lairs. They had come up with the plan of every single inhabitant in the empires of the universe dropping a single drop of magic into their machine they had made. All the gods and goddesses put a drop in, as did the good princes and princesses and the good immortals and immortal angels. The machine was then as magically made to duplicate everyone's drop of magic, so that the power of the machine outweighed the power of the evil gods and goddesses' magic combined to protect them in their impenetrable lair. Every single member of the grand universe from every empire and every god and goddess angel had put a drop in. The machine was ready to go. The inhabitants of the empires where both their makers had fled were joined in a good god and goddess's empire. The ones where one maker was good and betrayed by their partner would remarry another in the future, as all would do if betrayed by their eternity partner. Princess Amrana and Princess Karina sat in a large circular room with chairs around it. Every single member of the universe of empires was there and could see perfectly using magic. In the middle of the room was a big hole. It was an entrance to a duplicated Helios to fall into. The gods and goddesses had made robot duplicate demon monster alien torturers to do the torturing with even more terrifying faces. The entire universe was waiting for the machine to begin and watch all the evil ones, no matter what species, be delivered into the hole and to begin their 10,000 years in Helios before permanent execution. Princess Amrana and Karina sat next to their parents. They both waited to confront Rivera and Kanak face to face and their evil siblings with their parents. The machine idea had come from their parents, Aura and Galacticus. Galacticus stood up from his seat and projected his voice. "We are all here seeking justice and retribution," Galactus roared. "We are here to see evil come to an end. We are here to see them stripped of their powers and tortured in Helios for the next 10,000 years. After that, each one will be ended forever. Once we have them all, we can all rest, as they will be a defeated force with no powers, with their own plans done back to themselves. Each traitor will be sentenced along with the rest at a later point and then dumped back into Helios. Satanist, Luciferian, and Davila will pay. Once we have them all, we can celebrate, as harmony and peace will be restored and everyone can feel at ease with the evil ones not in their lairs anymore. Let's begin." Galacticus and Aura stood up and stood beside the machine with everyone's drop of power duplicated into it. Aura put her hand on the lever and pushed it back. A massive vortex began to form above their heads and above the gaping hole entrance to Helios. A few minutes later, everyone saw the first gods and goddesses, demon monster alien torturers, prince and princesses, and evil immortal and immortal angels come through. The entire universe sat and watched until they had all been delivered. Chapter 14. When all had been delivered, the gaping hole, the entrance of Helios, sealed itself magically. Princess Amrana and Princess Karina, along with every viewer in the grand room, began clapping. Every good inhabitant, god or goddess, prince or princess, immortal or immortal angel, applauded Galacticus and Aura for their deliverance machine. They had successfully retrieved every evil being from every single lair. The whole room started cheering after the amazing round of applause. After leaving the room, relieved voices could be heard across the empires. Everyone thanked Galacticus and Aura for their machine and Jorith and Marlita for their amulets. It was a happy occasion. They were delivered from evil, and once they had confronted all they needed to confront, could live again peacefully and happily. Murder, death, torture, fear, never a threat to them again. The next day, Princess Amrana and Princess Karina visited former Prince Rivero and Kanak with their parents. Their parents had fished them out of the fires of Helios. They sat them down in an empty room. As soon as Galacticus entered the cell with Rivero in it, Galacticus got hold of Rivero, lifted his body and bashed it from side to side. He then pinned him against the wall and began punching him. Aura came and joined in while Amrana and Karina watched. Galacticus and Aura stopped, pledging to them that for all their 10 minutes of torture they would get double the pain back, with what the good gods and goddesses had invented for them instead. Amrana then approached Rivero. She stood directly in front of him. She looked into his eyes. There was nothing there but malice and hatred. He even nearly smirked, looking at her. "How could you?" Amrana whispered. "I was jealous," Rivero spat. "I'm not meant to be here," he began to shout. "You're all meant to be here. It was the solution to all of our problems. Being yourselves," Rivero roared. "Shut up," Galacticus ordered, punching Rivero in the face again. Amrana stared at Rivero. There was nothing there. No good, no compassion, no anything. He was a black void. He was truly evil. Amrana conjured one of the torture weapons the three had made and stabbed it into Rivero repeatedly. He screamed and screamed at the pain that it caused every time she stabbed. Karina then took the weapon and began stabbing too. They stayed in the cell for an hour getting their revenge, inflicting the pain on Rivero again and again until they all felt satisfied. After, Aura and Galactus threw him back into the fires again to suffer before his execution for 10,000 years. They then fetched Kanak out of the fires and put him into the cell. He was awful, even worse to face. "Hello," Kanak said when he saw Karina's face. He smirked cockily. "Having fun with us now, are we?" he spat. This time Karina said shut up and smacked him around the face. Again their parents beat him until the smile left his face. "You were meant to be here," he roared. "You!" he shouted at Karina's face, hoping to torture her emotionally instead. All four of them inflicted pain on Kanak until they felt satisfied again, and some of his cockiness had etched away. They used the tools invented by the three to inflict the pain. It was truly evil magic that the three had created. Again, they carried on until his smile was wiped from his face. Then they dumped him back into the fires of Helios too. Next, they confronted each one of their 22 siblings. When Aura and Galacticus stared them down, they laughed. They had no remorse, nothing in them. They only regretted the failure. The grandchildren acted the same. Aura and Galacticus began torturing them instead, and Karina and Aura followed suit with each one of them. Every betrayed being got their revenge for murder and for torture. When it came to Satanus, Luciferian, and Davila, they were brought for public sentencing first. The three of them did nothing but roar and shout. "We hate you all," they all cried. They need a beating too, Amrana thought to herself. They were so conceited and unapologetic and angry at the failure. When they were told their sentencing of 10,000 years in Helios, pain and suffering, their fate instead, followed by death for themselves, they all screamed. Everyone in the universe then watched as the good gods and goddesses pulled all three down into the pits of Helios to exact their revenge on all three. Amrana sat back in her seat and sighed a sigh of relief as the entrance hole to Helios sealed itself again. "It's over," she said out loud. Karina put her arm around Amrana's shoulder and pulled her into a tight hug. "It's over," Karina said, sounding relieved. Chapter 15. Amrana and Karina were lounging in the hammocks outside of Amrana's bedroom window again. They were sipping a lovely, refreshing fruit drink through a straw as they looked at the stars happily. "I can't believe it's over," Amrana exclaimed happily. "I feel free again. The devil is no longer at our door. We're free of them all." Their parents, Aura and Galacticus, were having a romantic evening to themselves. They were currently snuggling in the living room after dinner together. There are a family of 4 now, Galacticus and Aura, along with the rest of the gods and goddesses and immortals they and immortals said they would have more children. They'd use magic to only give birth to the ones who in the situation would never have said yes to the evil plan. They would all live happily again. Amrana and Karina would remarry in the future, as would everyone whose partner had betrayed them. They would both have a lot of children too, and be even happier in the future with a new eternity partner. It feels so free, Karina remarked happily. No fear with them at the door of their pocket universes, our evil neighbours, and they're all paying the price for their crimes, Karina added. Everyone in the universe empires knew they were safe and no evil magic could ever be cast against any of them again, with all the magic safety spells the gods and goddesses had put up. It was impossible for anyone to lift their hand to cause death, pain, or suffering, or anything evil at all to anyone. Amrana sighed happily. Let's just enjoy ourselves forever, Amrana said elatedly, soaking in the night sky and magnificent sight of the stars. Yes, Karina added happily. We're going to live forever and we're completely safe. No one's ever going to ruin our good time ever again, Karina said joyously, stretching her arms and putting her hands behind her head, lying on her hammock. The two sisters smiled, gazing up at the stars and enjoying the beauty of the universe. Forevermore. The end. Okay, so thank you everyone for listening to my horror fantasy novel called The United Universe, Empires of the Gods and Goddesses by myself, Priya Grewal, and it's available on Amazon in Kindle or on paperback. So that concludes season 3, episode 4 of my podcast. I hope everyone has a fabulous week. Until next time, take care everyone. Bye-bye.